Welcome back to Soft English Studio. I'm Emma.
And I'm Ryan.
It's wonderful to have you with us today. Ryan, can I ask you something? Have you ever picked up your phone just to check one message and then realized half an hour had disappeared?
More times than I'd like to admit. It happens so easily that I don't even notice it sometimes.
I know exactly what you mean. I'll unlock my phone for one reason, and somehow I end up scrolling through completely unrelated things.
I've done that too. It's amazing how quickly one short break can turn into a much longer one.
Do you think we're spending more time online than we realize?
I think so. If someone asked me to guess my screen time, I'd probably underestimate it.
I had that experience recently. I checked the screen time report on my phone, and I was genuinely surprised.
Was it higher than you expected?
Much higher. I kept telling myself I was only using my phone for a few minutes at a time.
Those few minutes really add up.
They do. And what's interesting is that I don't always remember what I was looking at afterward.
I've noticed the same thing. Sometimes I spend a long time online without feeling like I gained anything from it.
That can be frustrating.
It can. At the same time, I don't think technology is the problem by itself.
Neither do I. We rely on it for work, learning, and staying connected.
Exactly. Maybe the real challenge is finding a healthy balance.
I think that's what we'll be exploring today.
I'm looking forward to it.
When do you think you're most likely to spend too much time online?
Usually when I'm tired or trying to avoid something difficult.
That's interesting. Why do you think those situations make a difference?
When I'm mentally exhausted, it's easier to reach for my phone than to think about what I really need.
I can understand that. Sometimes scrolling feels like the easiest option after a long day.
It almost becomes automatic.
I've noticed that certain apps are especially good at holding my attention.
Mine too. I tell myself I'll watch one short video, and before I know it, another one starts playing.
It's surprisingly easy to lose track of time.
That's happened to me quite a few times.
Do you ever catch yourself picking up your phone without a clear reason?
More often than I expected. Sometimes I unlock it out of habit, even when there aren't any new messages.
I've started noticing that habit as well.
Becoming aware of it was actually a little surprising.
Why do you say that?
Because I realized I wasn't always using my phone intentionally. Sometimes I was simply filling quiet moments without thinking about it.
I never thought about it that way.
Once I noticed the pattern, I started paying more attention to when and why I reached for my phone.
And I think that's a conversation many people can relate to. Earlier, you mentioned reaching for your phone without really thinking about it. Why do you think that habit develops so easily?
I think it's because our phones are always within reach. When we have a spare moment, checking them almost feels like a natural reaction.
I've noticed that too. Waiting in line, sitting on a bus, or even making a cup of coffee can become an opportunity to look at a screen.
That's true. We don't leave much room for boredom anymore.
Do you think boredom is actually useful sometimes?
I do. Some of my best ideas have come to me when I wasn't doing anything in particular.
That's interesting because I've had similar experiences while taking a walk or simply looking out of the window.
I wonder if constant online activity leaves us with less time to reflect.
There could be something to that. If every quiet moment is filled with new information, our minds rarely get a chance to slow down.
I've also realized that many apps are designed to keep us engaged for as long as possible.
That makes it even harder to put the phone down.
Exactly. It's not only about self-control. Sometimes we're responding to systems that are built to capture our attention.
That changes the way I think about the problem.
It does for me as well. Instead of blaming ourselves, it encourages us to become more aware of our habits.
And perhaps awareness is the first step toward making better choices.
I couldn't agree more.
Do you think spending a lot of time online is always a bad thing?
Not necessarily. I think it depends on how we're using that time.
What do you mean?
If I'm taking an online course, talking with family, or learning a new skill, I don't see that as a problem.
That makes sense. Using technology with a clear purpose feels very different from scrolling without thinking.
Exactly. Intentional use and mindless use aren't the same.
Although, I sometimes wonder whether the line between the two can become blurry.
That's a fair point. I might open my phone to reply to one message and then get distracted by something completely unrelated.
I've experienced that more than once.
So have I. That's why I don't think the amount of time online tells the whole story.
You're saying the quality of that time matters too?
Yes, spending 20 minutes learning something useful feels very different from losing an hour without even realizing it.
I hadn't considered that distinction before.
It helped me stop thinking in terms of good or bad. Instead, I started asking whether my online time matched what I actually wanted to do.
I like that question. It feels more practical than simply trying to spend less time online.
I think so too. It encourages us to be more intentional instead of feeling guilty every time we pick up our phones.
And that's a perspective I'd like to explore a little further. Earlier, you mentioned asking yourself whether your online time matched what you actually wanted to do. That reminded me of something that happened a few months ago.
What happened?
I sat down one evening intending to reply to a couple of messages before reading a book.
That sounds like a simple plan.
It was. But after answering those messages, I started checking social media, watched a few videos, and clicked on several articles that caught my attention.
And I'm guessing you never got to the book.
Not that evening. By the time I looked at the clock, it was much later than I expected.
I've had almost the same experience.
Really?
Yes. One weekend, I planned to organize some old photos on my computer. Instead, I spent nearly an hour reading comments and following links that had nothing to do with my original plan.
It's surprising how easily our attention can drift.
It really is. Looking back, I wasn't even enjoying most of that time.
That's something I've noticed too. Sometimes I'm online for a long time, but I don't actually feel refreshed afterward.
I know that feeling.
It can leave me wondering where the evening went.
Those experiences made me realize that being connected all the time isn't quite the same as using technology intentionally.
I think that's an important distinction.
Have you found anything that helps you be more intentional with your online time?
A few things, actually. The biggest change was deciding what I wanted to do before I unlocked my phone.
That's such a simple idea.
It is, but it makes a real difference. If I have a clear purpose, I'm much less likely to get distracted.
I've started doing something similar. I also pay more attention to the moments when I reach for my phone automatically.
Has that helped?
I think so. Sometimes I realize I'm simply looking for a quick distraction, and that awareness gives me a chance to make a different choice.
I've noticed another habit that's been useful.
What's that?
I try to put my phone somewhere that's not within reach when I'm reading or working on something important.
That probably removes a lot of temptation.
It does. Out of sight isn't a perfect solution, but it makes interruptions less frequent.
I like that because it doesn't require giving up technology altogether.
Exactly. The goal isn't to avoid being online, it's to make sure technology supports what we're trying to do instead of quietly taking over our attention.
That's a balanced way to look at it.
I think so. And there's still one more part of this conversation I'd love to explore before we finish.
After everything we've talked about today, I don't think the biggest challenge is technology itself.
I feel the same way. Technology has made many parts of our lives easier. The challenge is learning how to use it instead of letting it control our attention.
Looking back, I think that's the idea I'll remember most from today's conversation.
Me too. I don't believe we need to disconnect from the online world completely.
Neither do I. It's become an important part of how we work, learn, and communicate.
The important thing is making sure it supports the life we want, rather than replacing parts of it.
That's a thoughtful way to put it.
I've realized that small habits often have a bigger impact than dramatic changes. Even pausing for a moment before unlocking my phone has helped me become more intentional.
I've had a similar experience. Paying attention to my habits has made me feel more in control, even though I'm still learning.
And I think that's perfectly normal. Building healthier habits usually happens little by little.
It doesn't have to be about being perfect.
Exactly. If we're becoming a little more aware each day, we're already moving in the right direction.
I really enjoyed today's discussion. It's reminded me that our time and attention are valuable, and they're worth protecting.
I couldn't agree more. Hopefully our conversation encourages everyone to think a little differently about their own online habits.
I hope so too. Before we finish, let's look at a few useful expressions from today's conversation.
Let's start with the phrasal verb scroll through.
We used it when we talked about opening our phones and scrolling through social media or other content. It means moving through information on a screen by swiping or moving the page.
For example, I was only going to check one message, but I ended up scrolling through videos for 30 minutes. It's a very common expression in everyday English because people use it whenever they talk about phones, social media, or websites.
Our second phrasal verb is become aware of.
This means to start noticing or realizing something that you didn't pay much attention to before.
For example, I became aware of how often I checked my phone without thinking. Native speakers often use this expression when talking about habits, feelings, or changes in perspective.
Now let's look at two useful collocations. The first one is lose track of time.
This means you don't notice how much time has passed because you're focused on something else.
For example, I lost track of time while watching short videos. It's a very natural expression that can be used in both positive and negative situations.
Our second collocation is out of habit.
We used it when talking about unlocking a phone out of habit. It means doing something automatically because you've done it so many times before.
For example, I reached for my phone out of habit, even though I didn't need it. You'll hear this collocation often when people talk about routines or behaviors they want to change. We've already looked at two phrasal verbs and two useful collocations. Let's finish with another expression that appeared naturally in today's conversation.
The expression is with a clear purpose.
We used it when we talked about using technology intentionally, instead of opening our phones without thinking. If you do something with a clear purpose, you know exactly why you're doing it.
For example, I opened my laptop with a clear purpose, so I finished my work without getting distracted. Native speakers often use this expression when talking about work, study, or daily habits.
It's a simple expression, but it's very practical because it encourages us to act intentionally rather than automatically.
That idea connects nicely with everything we discussed today.
So let's quickly review all the vocabulary we've learned. We talked about scroll through, which means moving through content on a screen.
Then we learned become aware of, which means beginning to notice or recognize something, especially a habit or behavior.
We also looked at lose track of time, a collocation that's perfect for describing those moments when time passes without us realizing it.
And finally, out of habit describes doing something automatically because we've repeated it so many times.
Looking back at today's conversation, I think one message stood out to me. Spending time online isn't necessarily the problem. What matters is whether we're using technology in the way we intended.
I feel the same way. We talked about how easy it is to scroll through videos or social media and suddenly lose track of time.
We also discovered that many of those habits happen out of habit, without us making a conscious decision.
That's why it can be so helpful to become aware of those patterns. Once we notice them, we have a better chance of changing them.
And remembering to use technology with a clear purpose can help us stay focused on what really matters.
We hope today's conversation gave you some useful English expressions, as well as a chance to reflect on your own daily habits.
Thanks so much for listening to another episode of Soft English Studio.
Keep practicing, stay curious, and enjoy learning English one conversation at a time.
We'll see you in the next episode.
Take care and goodbye.